This thing doesn't work for shit at far distance, but I was just over there trying to listen to those folks' music, and quicker than I could, their dogs ran at me. Two of them were tied to each other, and all people have to do when their dogs are attacking you is say stop, and they didn't. Why not? Well, because people's dogs are the projection of their child self, their carnal self, their ego, their unconscious, self-indulgent, spoiled-ass bullshit, their insular, oblivious, blissfully dipshit self that says, hey, if my dog's attacking you, you must have done something wrong, like come over here and listen to us play music. And I have really intense energy, and all animals freak out on me. Human animals want to beat me up, and dogs want to bite me. Wild animals like me because they're not domesticated assholes. That guy just went over there, the other guy playing guitar with him, even though you can't see any of it because it's a fucked up camera, and said hi to the dogs, and the dogs even barked at him. But once you say hi to the people and pet the dogs, they're cool. But I literally just wanted to sit in the tree, and all the people have to do is say, hey, don't attack that guy, and they couldn't be bothered. So then I screamed a speech about bliss-stinnies and the counterculture being bullshit and hippies being assholes, and I'm never going to be happy because apparently ignorance is bliss, and I'm not entirely sure if you people are all really stupid or if I'm a genius, and I don't really give a shit. Am I a genius, or are you really all just that dumb? I did not think that Ashland, Oregon could make me hate hippies any more than the 90s, and so I'm remembering, well, gee, John, what happened in the 90s? In the 90s, I went on the Last of Dead tour after some second-generation hippie girl who saw me in Missoula and then saw me in Flagstaff said, that guy's following me across the country, kick him out of the cool cafe. So then I drove to California and Jerry died. Then I had a really nice experience at Jerry's funeral where some random guy who was the last good Samaritan on the planet and a dental student said you could sleep in my house tonight. In the morning, he just left me on a really expensive couch with a really expensive TV and a bong and said, just lock the door when you leave. That was nice. Then I went up to Portland where I met a guy I knew from a rainbow gathering named Mike. Guy from Georgia. Hey, John, it's Mike. Big old belly, big old red hair. I once asked him if he'd ever used a weapon on someone. He goes, yeah, one time we had to repossess a plane from a drug dealer. Me and my friend, the DEA agent drug dealer. I said, you did what? He go, we went down to Honduras and repossessed a plane. I had to shoot some people with an Uzi. I said, did they die? He goes, I don't know. We were taking off when it happened. I said, did you get any of the cut of the repossession of the plane? He said, yeah, it was worth $3 million. I got 30 grand. So then I went up to Canada to meet with some boys we met at a rainbow gathering and score some weed. Then I smuggled it back across the border. In one of those runs, I actually opened up the bag in the ship, in the cargo hold, and then figured out that the U.S. was on the other side after having smoked a bowl and had the worst anxiety trip of my life other than smuggling weed from the Mexican border in Tucson on the whoop-de-doos when the boys said they'd stand my ass, and who was on my ass was the Border Patrol, and I had 7 pounds of weed in the truck and a lamb cord holding the trunk closed, and every time I hit a bump on the whoop-de-doos, the trunk would pop open, and there was a Border Patrol on my ass. If you want to literally almost die of anxiety, if you want to have an acid trip of anxiety, try that sometime. But back to Mike. I went to the Rainbow Gathering because I knew I had a spiritual appointment to meet Mike. I walked down the road without a way to get to the gathering from the airport, and here comes Mike in his crappy old car. At one point, I remember lecturing him about random threesomes because maybe that's not a good idea, and by the way, can you sell me some weed? Eventually, he decided that I was just a pretentious little born-again Christian kid, and I'm not. I'm a Jewish believer in Jesus and a Buddhist, but that's different. And eventually, when I came back from Canada, having scored weed on what he thought was his connection, even though it's no one's connection, and risked my life, he dragged me into a shed behind the house in Portland and insisted that I front him 2 to 4 ounces, which I then eventually did because I didn't want to have a fist fight. He then went to the bar, sold $20 nugs, and got on a plane for Hawaii. And so I went to the house in Portland and asked these shit kicker losers, who kept saying shit like, I can't remember, it doesn't matter. People are kind of pulling up and weirding out at me. They had all these sayings they liked. I can see, said the blind man. That was it. So anyways, they said, your friend Mike robbed you. Sorry, get out of here. And I remember driving down the road, hating on hippies and thinking, if I were to see Mike by the side of the road right now, I would run him over. You can't kill a guy over 2 ounces of weed, John. No, but I'd scare him real bad because what the fuck? I went on Dead Tour. I spent the last of my money on a really beautiful kitchen. I gave away food. I ruined my credit rating. The hordes invaded and robbed me. I asked some hippie girl, please, could you watch this shit for a little while? She said, not really. And when I came back, $2,000 of equipment was gone, and my credit rating is shit to this day. I loved the Grateful Dead, but Jerry Garcia himself said, and I quote, for some people, the Grateful Dead trip can be a really bad trip. So like for fat old dead junkies, maybe? Or dysfunctional families, or people possessed by familiar spirits, or people who think that the sexual revolution was the opportunity, instead of the opportunity for amazing spiritual and emotional growth, the opportunity to become a more insular, self-absorbed, bliss-any dipshit who doesn't know one thing about maybe just tell the dogs not to bite me when they're about to bite me, or why do I owe you a blanket at 3 in the morning when I'm at a rainbow gathering? You're like, hey, brother, do you have a blanket? How did you get to the woods at 10,000 feet at 3 in the morning without a fucking blanket? I'm not your dad. So, counterculture was a miserable failure. The sexual revolution could have been used for human evolution, but it was used for materialism and insular, egotistical, malignantly narcissistic bullshit. And no one seems to know this. And the conservatives say this, but their alternative is a traditionalist, authoritarian, blind faith system that brought us the Antichrist as the president. So your two choices are people who think they are God and they're therefore a dick, or people who fear God who's a dick, and no one knows that God is love and no one gives a shit, that there but for the grace of God goeth thee, and that the reason why I look like this isn't because I'm a tweaker, it's because I'm sick as shit, I'm a very intelligent person, and God inspired me to move my way through 41 years of horrible illness in which I took your dog's medicine and have been bleeding on a street corner for what is eventually, at this rate, going to be 7 years. What a bummer. And I'm done saying, oh well, maybe the next life will work out. Jesus is taking me to heaven after this life. I've brought this religious dysfunction to many lifetimes. I'm going to solve it in this lifetime, or we'll just leave and I'll solve it in the next lifetime. In the next lifetime, I will be in a nice place and won't give a shit. George Carlin said, and I quote, you should never underestimate the value of not giving a shit. It can really help you a lot in life. Yeah, except towards the end of his life, he said, I give up on democracy. I give up on the human race. I don't vote because there's no point. The earth is going to slough us off like a bad case of fleas. It'll just be the earth plus plastic. Nobody told George about global warming, and now Trumpsters are using George Carlin as evidence of their anti-environmentalist bullshit on the web. They're also using Dave Chappelle as evidence of conspiratorial bullshit. In other words, the Illuminati wouldn't let Dave Chappelle be a comedian. Oh God, let's try and think of one funny thing to say before I'm done. My crazy friends in Arcadia with whom I would have lived and grown weed and been rich by now made me watch conspiracy theories on the Websters there. One watches aliens and one watches Alex Jones. The one with Alex Jones thinks the triangles are evidence of the Illuminati. So when Taco Bell has triangles in their corporate logo, that's the devil. He showed me a video of Katy Perry's titties exploding, and that's the devil too. See, they're triangles. I said, hey, Dove, second generation hippie kid who's nuts and believes in crazy shit. Titties are a sign that God made titties triangular. Triangles and titties aren't a sign of the devil. It's a sign that God made titties triangular, and also a sign of the fact that you're afraid of titties, especially when they belong to Katy Perry and they're exploding. Okay, later.